George, I want everybody's, but you first. Your biggest takeaways today.
Biggest takeaway today was how Trump's lawyers got creamed on the gag order. And then the second biggest takeaway is how good a witness David Pecker was. I mean, on the first
For
one,
the prosecution.
For the prosecution. He's telling the story in an orderly fashion. He's just the right demeanor to tell the story chronologically from beginning to end, the theme being this was all about affecting the election. Mm-hmm. And that is, he's taking the weight off of Michael Cohen. It's going to be the defense, actually, who's going to try to build up the importance of Cohen. Prosecution doesn't have to. Combination of Pecker basically setting the stage for explaining why they ended up doing what they did with Stormy Daniels, and basically explaining, and then the paperwork. You don't really need that much from Cohen, and so it's a pretty powerful presentation that they're making right now. We'll see how he does on cross, but
that's my question. Then what's the defense going to do? Just try to destroy his credibility? And let's be honest, when you're the publisher of one of the biggest multiple tabloids in the world for decades, there are going to be holes to
I guess there are, but I mean, whose buddy was he?
Yeah, yes.
So I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I'm sure they've got something, but if Pecker acts with the demeanor and with the calmness that he has been showing in the courtroom, and doesn't try to fight on cross and do the things that you don't want witnesses to do on cross, like get defensive. Just stick to the facts, concede what you have to concede. He could end up being just his credibility could end up winning the case for the prosecution alone. But we'll see. We've got several weeks to go.
What did you learn today, Charles?
Conservative lawyer side, I have to agree with George 100% on this one. I think that the prosecution had a really good day. It's one of those things where, on one hand, you sometimes want to do your best as a lawyer, but they got a lot of help in terms of the gag order proceeding and how poorly Donald Trump's defense team did there. To go further with what George was talking about, a large part of the defense's case is going to be built on trying to chip away at the credibility of Michael Cohen as well as Stormy Daniels with regard to her ulterior motives. With a witness like David Pecker setting the stage in front of this jury the way that he did, you don't have to rely on their credibility as much, such that when it comes down to summation, you can say, look, you don't have to believe Michael Cohen. You don't have to necessarily like or believe Stormy Daniels. Look at David Pecker. This is someone who knew Donald Trump. This is someone who had a relationship probably longer than any of the witnesses that you're going to hear with Donald Trump, and listen to what he told you. That is going to be key. And then with regard to the gag order hearing, Stephanie, they blew it in grand fashion.
Okay, but hold on. They blew it in terms of the performance today. But when it comes to the consequences, what is Trump really going to face? $1,000 for each one? Big whoop. Is he going to go to prison? Really? Well, jail.
Okay, I mean, I don't know that they blew it in terms of the performance. The problem was that they had nothing substantive to say in Trump's defense. I mean, the arguments that they were making were complete BS. One was, oh, well, some of these were just retweets. And the other was, well, he was defending against attacks. It's like, okay, well, there's no exception in the gag order for defending against political attacks. And show me, the judge said, show me what attacks they were responding to. And it was like, blah, 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 blah.
But part of the problem here is that when you are Donald Trump's lawyer, you are Donald Trump's lawyer.
And that's a good reason not to be Donald Trump's lawyer.
Right, but that was the problem here. And actually, Charles brought this up today in a tweet where he said, like, clearly this man is an accomplished enough lawyer to know what he's doing here is completely off.
But he had no choice. He's got to.
At a minimum, I would have expected him to walk into court and at least have some sort of a plan or guideline to present to Judge Marchand to say, look, this is how we should go about evaluating these things, to try and give his client some wiggle room. You know Donald Trump is not going to change. Right. You know he's going to continue to violate it. So you at least have to try and give Judge Marchand something that he can work with in an opinion, in an order that Donald Trump might be able to follow. The fact that none of this was done was a shocker to me, and it reeks of a client that cannot be controlled.
Hold on. Let's bring Susan in. Susan, let's say Donald Trump does end up in jail for a short period of time at some point because of the gag order. How much is that going to, A, impact public perception? And how much is it going to impact this trial? How much would it disrupt it?
It's not going to happen. I mean, I could be wrong. You got a lot of distinguished lawyers there. It's not going to happen. Donald Trump is trying, in my opinion, to bait the judge, and the judge is, frankly, in the other cases as well. He's trying to bait them. He's trying to provoke them. His strategy is, in fact, to violate this gag order and to see how far he can push it, in part to break the credibility of the institutions. That's the playbook that he's been running his whole life. It's the playbook that he runs against any institution that he's up against. And I believe that he believes that this judge is not going to put him in jail for violating the gag order, and that, in fact, he is proving the hollowness to a certain extent and how the rules are different for him than for other people. And, of course, that's really what this whole trial is about, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I'm going to disagree about him having a strategy. The man does not have a strategy. He is just a psychopath. He cannot follow rules. He cannot be controlled. And he is going to push the edge no matter what, unless he comes up against an immovable wall. And I think what the judge can do here is, I think there's going to be a $10,000 fine, like a big whoop, as you say.
Yeah, big whoop.
Big whoop. But the thing I would say is, the next time, we've been clear here. The order says this. My explanation in my decision here is, here's why these were violations of the gag order. The next time you do this, you're going to spend an hour or two in a holding cell. And if you do it a second time, it's going to be 4 hours. And then it's going to be 8 hours. And then we're going to have you stay overnight. He's not going to like that. I mean, he may be trying to bait the judge, but it's going to make him look weak and sad and pathetic.
Molly.
Here's the question. Can Donald Trump control his behavior?
No.
Which it's not clear that he can. So if you're saying these are consequences, it's not entirely clear to me that he could prevent himself from doing that. Even
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But the judge has to telegraph this out in advance before he does it.
I agree with that.
Hold on, Susan?
I'm curious whether George thinks that Donald Trump is really going to go to jail for violating the gag order.
I think it's possible. I think it's distinctly possible. And I think the way you do that is to give that warning and say, you're this close, dude. You are this
How
close.
about the fact that it's day 2 and Mershon tells Trump's lawyer, you're losing all credibility? Like, can that not get lost here?
This is why I said they blew it. You cannot have as much trial in front of you and have a judge who's presiding over that trial tell you that you are losing credibility. Because guess what? Once it's gone, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get back. And you don't want to have to deal with that. In addition to trying to wrangle one of the most difficult clients in judicial history, that's not something that you want to have to sort of balance in terms of what you're dealing with as an attorney. In terms of what Mershon may do, I do believe that he is going to lay out a plan to go forward. But I disagree about the strategy. I have said for a very long time, and I maintain, he is intentionally putting pressure on the refs across the board in all of his cases. Why? Because one way or the other, he finds a way to spin the narrative and he benefits. If Judge Mershon throws him in jail for contempt, he is going to turn around and raise insane amounts of money as a martyr. If he doesn't, he continues to act like a wild man.
But can I add just one thing quickly? For so long, everyone has said you can't hold Trump accountable because this will happen or that will happen. You know, it's happening and it's fine. There's like no one outside that courthouse.
That's exactly what I want to talk about. So this whole idea, and then he's going to raise insane amounts of money. Are you so sure about that? In 2016, there were massive crowds. There were people day in and day out standing outside Trump Tower. I was standing outside Trump Tower, and you know who was peeking to see if he showed up today? Passersby who were going to Tiffany's or to look at the Gucci store. And so the story of 2016 was this MAGA crowd. But it seems like the story of this trial in 2024 is that it's awfully quiet outside that courtroom.
Yeah.
I think it's a difference. Donald Trump, the candidate, and Donald Trump, the defendant, are sort of one and the same in this really interesting amalgamation with what we're watching here. I don't necessarily think the public support of coming down to the trial at this point is going to be what it was when he was a novelty in 2016. But I still believe that he is going to be able to galvanize the financial support from other people across the country if he positions himself as the martyr that he wants to believe that he is.
He's growing old, though. He's running. He's tapped these people out.
And
that is the problem.
And the FT, it reported that he has 200,000 less small dollar donors. I mean, that's a huge number. And even in these primaries today in Pennsylvania, Nikki Haley got, a really good percentage. She's not even in the race.